Left of the box. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about the tragic rescue, which sounds really odd when you say it like that. The tragic rescue of hostages. Because there were 4 hostages rescued from Hamas at the cost of over 200 lives. Somebody tweeted out, and I fully back this statement, that if I were to be kidnapped and the cost of getting me back was the lives of 200 people, leave me. Just leave me there. Okay? My life is not worth 200 innocent people. That is just absolutely ridiculous. And then seeing the way that people are celebrating it. Like, I understand the joy of getting your loved ones back, but that's what a lot of the media is just focusing on, those 4 lives, as opposed to the absolute horror and tragedy of all the lives that will never be returned to their loved ones. And it's shocking to see how this is being covered on the news, on social media. And so we have one news story here. And the interesting thing about this is here you see the full title. So 4 Israeli hostages rescued in military operation, Palestinian officials say killed over 200 people. But when you're seeing this on just the regular YouTube screen as suggested, all you see is 4 Israeli hostages rescued in military operation. Because they keep the most tragic part till the end. So a lot of people don't even see that part of the sentence. So we have here from City News, one of how it's a good representation of how the media is covering it.
4 hostages taken in the October 7th Hamas attacks have been rescued from the Gaza Strip.
Noah, Almog, Andrei, and Shlomi were rescued after 246 days in Hamas captivity after they were brutally kidnapped from the Nova Musical Festival on the 7th of October.
Yes, after they were brutally kidnapped, as opposed to the over 200 people who were brutally killed to get them back.
The group taking their first steps on Israeli soil since being captured nearly 8 months ago. Their family and friends rushing to the hospital to greet them, along with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. This harrowing footage made its way across the globe, depicting the moments the hostages were abducted. Israeli officials saying they are all now safe and healthy, a message U.S. President Joe Biden is pleased to hear.
We won't stop working until all the hostages come home and a ceasefire is reached.
So we're now just over a minute into this, and there's still no mention of the over 200 people killed. Now, I don't want to minimize what these hostages have gone through, being kidnapped, horrible, and I don't agree with, that happening, no matter who's doing it or why. To just kidnap civilians like that is horrendous and it's traumatic, and I don't minimize that at all. I also find it's a very interesting comparison when you see Palestinians released from IDF detention, or the hostages that the IDF has, and the condition that they're in when they get released, versus the condition the hostages from Hamas when they get released. But it's like, again, not trying to minimize the trauma they've been through. It is just something, like, I'm trying to find the right words here. Over 200 people. Whereas if they had just negotiated a ceasefire, that's all that would have taken to get a lot of those hostages back. And when I say they negotiate a ceasefire, I mean Israel. Hamas has been very open about wanting to do that, but it's Israel who keeps on blocking it. Israel is responsible for probably more deaths of the hostages than Hamas is. But, they keep on focusing on just, you need to release the hostages, no matter the cost. And that's not right. And we'll get into it in just a moment.
That is essential to happen.
Israeli officials say it took a specially curated military operation to bring the hostages home, one the country's defense minister is calling a proud moment for Israel.
It's a proud moment. Rescuing 4 hostages at the expense of over 200 lives. I'd say it'd be a proud moment if you negotiated a ceasefire where nobody died and you got the hostages back. That would be a proud moment. That would show the world that you actually value human life. That could be something to be proud of. They should be ashamed of what they did. But they're not.
This is one of the most heroic and impressive operations I've seen during my 47 years in the security system, IDF forces, special police forces, and security services. The fighters and supporting units conducted a mission that cannot be rivaled.
But Palestinians
It's just to be proud and say, oh yeah, this was a great mission. We did so well. Do they hear themselves? What they're saying? That they executed this without issue to get these hostages back when over 200 people died. And then the hostages that come back, that the Israeli government doesn't want speaking to the people because they're worried they'd be too sympathetic towards Hamas and other Palestinians who are suffering, just like they don't have the family members of the hostages going in front of the media pleading for the Israeli government to have a ceasefire because that's too sympathetic towards the Palestinians.
Palestinian authorities say the operation came at a great cost to civilians in Gaza. According
So now a minute and 44 into a 2-minute 40 video, so just a minute left. And now they're finally mentioning the over 200 people that were killed. And yeah, somebody in the chat is reminding me that I have seen the articles and stuff saying that the way the IDF soldiers got in was through humanitarian aid vehicles. Wow. Like, which would then make a lot of Palestinians very suspicious of humanitarian aid vehicles. That's the point. That's the point.
to Gazan health authorities, at least 210 Palestinians were killed and another 400 injured in the operation, which saw Israeli strikes touch down in a central Gaza refugee camp. Local medics in the Strip say this is the
Yeah, if over 200 people have to die and over 400 people are injured to rescue me, don't. Don't. Just don't. I would never be able to live with myself.
the single most deadly day Palestinians have seen over the course of this war. Israel responding, saying it will continue to do what needs to be done to bring Israelis home.
Men, women, children. When we say that we will do everything to bring our hostages back home, we mean it.
So what is he saying here? Is he trying to talk to the men, women, and children of the audience to reassure them, saying that we'll do whatever it takes? Or is he saying the lives of men, women, and children, we'll take them, we'll sacrifice them, we'll kill them to get what we want? Also known as a war crime. And yet so many people still on here are saying, oh, Israel isn't guilty of any war crimes. Can you prove it? They are saying it on social media in front of cameras. Men, women, children, whatever it takes. They're willing to kill men, women, and children to retrieve these hostages. Hostages that could go back if they secured a ceasefire.
Women, children. When we say that we will do everything to bring our hostages back home, we mean it. We will not stop fighting for their freedom. Any other decent country in the world would do the same.
According to
Any other decent country in the world would commit massacres after massacres after massacres? No, I don't buy it. I have no doubt Americans would. Even the Canadian government, yeah. But that doesn't make you a decent country. It makes you a brutal country, bloodthirsty country. Like, what do you even say at this point? I said it in my video with the student, and I full-heartedly believe it, that Israel will not stop until other countries force them to, or until the over 2 million people there have died. Those are the only two ways this will stop. They just act so righteous in taking these lives when it's what's been happening over the past 76 years that caused this situation in the first place. The oppression, the open-air prison, the killings, the imprisonments, the removal of rights, removal of ability to survive, because we always hear about, well, we don't always hear, but the numbers we hear about, in this incident, this many people were lost, or this many people were killed. But those numbers never take into account the amount of people who died because they couldn't get the proper nutrition, they couldn't get the proper water, they couldn't get the proper health care, because that was all denied to them, that they couldn't get a job, that they were starved to death. All of those things that were still happening to the Palestinians, especially in Gaza, that you never hear about. Those aren't included in those numbers. People who, if they were just living on the other side of that fence, would still be alive because they would have access to the things they need to survive. So many more people, so many more lives have been lost than what the media is reporting. And especially now, with everything that's happening in Gaza, we'll never truly know the full extent of the horror.